Welcome to the podcast that discusses storytelling from all angles to help you and us answer the call when the muse screams, "Tell the damn story." We'll be exploring the challenges of being creative in fiction, illustration, comics, film, and nonfiction.
Hello, Alex Simmons!
Simmons.
Welcome back to another episode of Tell the Damn Story.
Yeah.
Here we are doing it again, babies.
I gotta
Yes,
tell
we
you,
are.
I have missed that. I have missed that outrageous, shock fest of Chris Ryan that comes at me, like that first sip of really strong coffee in the morning.
Hey now. Yeah, that was a request, ladies and
Yes,
gentlemen.
that was. I actually begged him to do that, because
Yeah, we're kind of developing a greatest hits of former incarnations or iterations of this show.
Yeah.
The opening is from the way we used to do things, and the hello. There you go.
Yeah.
So hello. How are you? What's going on with the legendary?
Well,
the breathtaking, the awe-inspiring.
Right. This is because, folks, he's got so much time on his hands now. Now that he's a retired teacher and a full-time writer pursuing his dream, he has time to just ponder the eloquence of himself.
Oh, yeah. You know what? I am still a teacher. I am trying my best to teach myself to stay at the damn writing table and keep going.
I hear you.
That's a lesson to learn, brother.
Yeah. Oh God.
Yeah.
But anyway, it's the last 2 months of the year. It's November, and December's coming right up on the heels of that. And so we've got the holidays, and we've got people looking at, and for me anyway, I teach screenwriting at the New York Film Academy, so there are a lot of my students are prepping for their final projects just before the end of the year. Lots of stories there, but we won't go into most of them today. And I'm also wrestling my own particular writing beastie that has been smacking me around. I feel sort of like, I don't know, maybe sort of like Bucky Barnes trying to take on Thanos. But
hey now.
I'm getting in a couple of shots here and there, so I'm hoping that's gonna, take care of itself. A few more days and I'll be good. And then, well, you know what? I think what I'm gonna do is let that segue into what are you up to? Because what I was gonna say next actually ties into what we're gonna talk about today. So what are you up to?
Once today is daylight savings time. We're recording this on Sunday, and everyone set their clocks back last night or early this morning, saying, "What time is it actually?"
Yeah.
So we're getting more darkness, and then that always feels like the signal. Wrap it up.
Yeah.
2021.
What are you trying to say? What are you trying to say?
Let's wrap it up, baby. And there's a couple of things that I want to accomplish before New Year's Eve, not to rush the calendar, but one is I'm getting better and worse at writing.
Oh, geez.
Since retirement. What I mean is I'm getting more disciplined, sitting down and putting in a couple hours in, running out, grabbing a sandwich, walking the dog, coming back, getting another session in, hooray for that part.
Yes.
Rewrites.
Oh.
Yeah, I'm definitely finding myself saying, "Oh, let me rework that. How can I do?" And then if you rewrite forever, you're in a particular purgatory of never getting finished, right? So there's 2 or 3 things that I want to finish, and out the door it goes. Some because it demanded that kind of rewriting. I just sent a story out. There's an anthology inspired by one-hit wonders.
Jeez.
Right?
Okay.
I'm one of the things I'm doing is looking at what the open calls are and trying to target at least one a month, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So that one caught my fancy, and
And
I
you mentioned the
decided to
open
do.
call thing last
Yes,
episode.
so this
right,
is kind of a build on
right,
that.
yeah.
I think it's a good exercise. It's also it's a good exercise in writing and in pushing your mind to fulfill someone else's request. And all right, so what would your imagination do with it? Great exercise. Deadline, great exercise.
Mhm.
And the physical sending of out, you know, sending it out.
Yes.
Another thing that you need to be good at
Letting
as
it
a
go.
writer, to
Yes,
get
right.
it out there and letting
Yeah.
it go, and also getting to the next thing, because
Mhm.
some of these stories you can tool and resend. I've resent a couple ones that people passed on and then moved on, you know. By the way, I need to make a correction from last week. I said that I passed on the Pink Floyd story. No, I was passed on. It was another story that I passed and said, no, I don't want to be with your company. Pink Floyd, I would have happily been there, but they went another way.
Oh, yeah,
and that happens all the time. You have to be able to bounce back. And I was able to send that out again, and we'll see what happens. But the one hit wonder, I decided to do Dr. John, right place, wrong, right time, wrong place.
right.
I was in the
right place, but
the right place
time.
was the wrong time. Right
Right,
place,
yeah.
wrong time.
I'm in the right place, but I was in the wrong
Yeah.
time. Okay, yeah, okay, there we go. Sorry, I just had a moment.
And I was thinking, well, how would I handle that? And Dr. John is, that's okay. It's beautiful. Dr. John was such a character and such, you know, one of my favorite personalities in pop culture. And in the early days, he used to walk around with a big stick, like a spirit stick, right? I don't know. I probably had a different name.
By the way, folks, for
so
those of you who have no idea who Dr. John is, he was a recording artist, okay?
Right. In the 70s.
Right. A songster. I'm not necessarily saying a singer, a songster, yes. Yeah.
Based in New Orleans. Great piano player. Definitely this kind of singing style, you know.
Yeah.
And he was known to be able to put some Cajun flavor, some New Orleans jazz flavor, and rock pop all together. And that's always what he was known. Yeah. But he also he kind of curated this personality. Dr. John, the night tripper, you know, and all this different stuff. And as he got bigger, a lot of that stuff fell away, and it was just his fingers and all that stuff. But he's a character, and I had a hard time separating the song from that personality. So I wound up doing an homage to Dr. John, the Reverend Dr. Lucian Thibodeau, and Cajun, Cajun minister. And he wound up hooking up with the Hellhounds, which is another group of characters for me. And the story told itself, except for the action ending, fairly quickly. And in editing, I realized that it was all in one room. You know, once the characters started talking, it was this unraveling. I told the story, got in the story as late as I could. And I said, okay, you can't tell the whole story from one room. So I had to break it up and you know, add some stuff and that's part of your editing process. And answering these open calls, it forces you to practice those things and forces you to be aware of when you're running and when you're conscious of scene work and all that sort of stuff.
At the same time, though, I just want to point out that you had to write it first. You had to get it out of your head.
Yeah, first draft, just let it go.
Right. There you go. Yeah. Okay.
As we've said in I don't know how many episodes.
Countless times.
Let it suck.
Yeah.
And then I had to go back and make it suck less, which I think is a golden rule. But so eventually got it. But you know, my initial goal with these is to get them out to the editors calling for them early. But this one, because I had to make a you know, what was, you know, a Godot play into a short story, you know, I wound up sending it out the last day, and I hate that happens. But okay, so now that's the goal. The next goal is to get on the story you choose to do quickly, and you know, again, the process has to be, you know, worked on, so it's more efficient,
Okay. And funny, you said goal, and I just
Right,
want to bring us around too. That's part of what we're going to be talking about
right.
today, or we are talking about.
Because, yeah,
Yeah.
because we're in November now, and
Yeah.
a lot of times publishing companies aren't really, I mean, except for the open calls, they aren't really looking to take on new contracts or new authors at the end of the year. They're wrapping up their own stuff and setting up for the next year. That, I talked to you about doing an episode where we talk about, all right, how do you use this time, the end of the year time? And
Mm-hmm.
we're suggesting that you should look at using November and December to prep your stuff, prep your plan, but also prep whatever stories you have for 2022, and use this time to get your house in order to hit 2022 running,
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Or at least jogging.
that's right.
Yeah.
So what we want to talk about that today, yes?
Yes, we definitely want to talk about that. It's also, I mean, again, because it's the end of the year, and as you said, publishers are not necessarily, ravaging writers at this point. To give me all you got. Um, I think it's a good time, and as you had said, it's a good time for us to look at what have we accomplished this year.
I
Whether
do that
it's
too.
whether we've been published or not, what have we accomplished? What did we work on? What did we complete at least a rough draft of? What did we complete totally and do some rewrites? And what did we send out? Really taking a tally of what you've accomplished, because I know for not just for creatives, but since creatives are so we play in our heads so much, sometimes we forget, and I'm absolutely a person who does this. We forget what we've done because we're so focused on trying to do the next thing or getting to the
Right,
next thing.
right.
And when you're, in those moments when maybe, you haven't sold such and such, or you've gotten some passes on work you've sent out, and you're feeling a little low, you start feeling like, oh man, I haven't done this, I can't do this,
Right.
nothing's ever going to work. And it's really advantageous, and it's also rejuvenating and affirming to really do a tally of what have you accomplished. And
Right.
that can be, yes, something's sold, which is a nice thing, that's great, or something's going to be published, that's a great thing. But even being able to say, that idea that's been stuck in my head for months or years, whatever, I started it. I
Mhm.
started working on it. I got it going. I plotted it out, or I did an outline, or I've got some chapters down. That's an accomplishment. That's moving forward. And again, I have some of my students who, it's funny because I remember doing this when I was, in that age range myself. But that you start something and you get stuck and you think, oh well, it's probably because it was a lousy idea, and I'll go for this new idea. And then you start that, and then you get stuck, and then you're going to put that aside. And it's really about, yeah, you're going to have lots of ideas. And that's great, jot them down. But reality is, if you don't begin and finish something,
Right.
you haven't taken that long walk. You haven't stretched, you haven't grown enough to be better, to learn
Right.
from and get better at what you're trying to pursue. So I think,
Mhm.
again, one of the things we should be doing, all of you guys out there should be doing, is looking at what have you accomplished this year,
Right.
and don't even look at it as like whether or not you finished, but what have you accomplished? Make a list of that, and really, give yourself a break. That,
Right.
yes, I took these steps forward, and I think that's
Well,
very important.
I agree with you, and I think that the exercise of, um, taking a tally, or an accounting of, well, what did I do this year? You know,
Hmm.
even if you're just making a list,
Checking your
uh,
flyers. I'm sorry.
here's, first draft, finished the second draft, sent out, rejected, even that.
Hmm.
If you go from January through November, you're going to see how much you actually did. Um, some people keep a word count tally of how many, how many words they wrote this day or that day. I know a guy who posted on Instagram, and he's always kind of like, 517. Yeah, but if he were to go back from January and just get a calculator or put the calculator app on his phone and just add all those numbers up for the year. Oh, well, I tell you, he's going to be telling himself a whole different story,
Right.
So, that might be something, I make a list of the stuff that I've sent out, and I looked and I was like, oh, I forgot of all that stuff, so, there it goes. And to finish this point, we have to go to a recent guest of ours, Teal James Glenn.
Yes.
Now, one of the things that Teal said to us during the interview was, it doesn't seem I can sell any of the stuff I wrote this year. Remember when he said that?
Yep.
Okay. In the last 5 weeks, he has signed contracts for 8 of those books. 8. No, I've never heard of anyone in my whole life who did that in 5 weeks. But he's just a living lesson that you keep going. You keep going, and he was kidding around and saying, every anthology I ever submitted to, it was rejected, and then it wound up going into another anthology.
Yep.
That's just part of the process. These 8 books. Imagine writing 8 books and finding no home for them, right? And then continuing to submit them to right? So many of us would just be like, I suck. Here's the proof. And they would stop. And now, when you feel like that, you have to say, what would Teal James Glenn do?
Right.
And keep
TJG,
going.
what would he do? What would he say?
That's right. TJG. What would he do? You have to do the TJG method.
Yeah.
But it is valid to look at that as saying, okay, if you give up, if you stop, if you don't send anything out, the world will continue. Right? So the world is not against you. These editors are too tired to take it personally. They're not rejecting you personally. I spoke with an editor for Bold Adventures books, and she was saying, she's got 45 books on her emails or whatever, wherever it is right now. She says, how can you read 45 books cover to cover? There has to be a time, yet you're forced to say, this one's not for us at a certain point in the book, and it might be deeper in the book. Some she knows, in Manhattan, sometimes they know it in the first sentence, some of those, and that's Cutthroat, God bless him, and that might be the first sentence of a pitch letter, but that's the animal kingdom you're living in.
Exactly.
But there's a place, and if you feel a strong need to rewrite or to abandon, you should really have a couple of questions that you ask yourself. And this time of year might be a good, oh, this book sucks. Yeah. All right. Write 10 reasons why. And it's not because I hate it. That's not
a
reason.
That's not
that's an opinion.
Yes.
And it's not a concrete reason.
It's not useful for you to function off of just an emotional reaction to a thing. If you are trying to become a professional or participant in the professional league of writing or performing, whatever, you need to understand why something doesn't work for you.
Right.
So that you can adjust it, fix it, cut it out, not do it again.
Exactly.
Whatever.
And that's what the list of 10 can do for you. If you spend this time, you got a project that I'm really frustrated about, and you write 10 things that you are sure are not working and you can prove are not working. I'm sorry, I keep hitting my own table. I do. I got my hands all the way back here, but because there might be hints in our video of things to come. Who knows?
Yeah.
But if you were to able to make a list and say, well, I don't understand why this character would do something, write that down. Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Or this plot point doesn't work because it comes out of nowhere. Okay, put that down.
Mhm.
Sure. But
Mhm.
when you finish that 10, that's your checklist for the rewrite.
Right.
And now you have conscious plan on how you're going to rewrite and how you're going to make that suck less. And right, because that's really what we do, right?
And that takes us into this, setting up writing goals about writing and editing and so forth. In evaluating, like, again, you've done your list of what did I do this year,
Not emotionally,
and
professionally.
you've looked at all of that. Maybe you're actually working on a project now, and you're at a certain point wherever that is in it. You can now say to yourself, okay, I've done my checklist. I've even gone over this project that I'm working on now, and I've looked at what's working and not working for me. And with this, maybe again with the 10 count. And so now you plan, what do I do going forward? How do I affect these things? With some hints of what needs the work, okay, then you can plan out how you're going to address or attack those things. One of the things that some of my students wrestle with is time management. They've got lives going on around their writing efforts, both in terms of things they're learning at school and also in terms of personal life things.
Right.
So again, I always say, with all the crazies and the fact that you're still breaking into this and getting used to this, if you give yourself 30 to 60 minutes a day, just, a half hour to an hour per day of writing time, you will keep moving forward. So you can certainly allocate, whether it's getting up, or like a certain friend of mine did for 30 years, getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning to get in some writing time,
Before the, well, definitely 26 years.
Yeah.
Because once the kids were up, that was it, bro.
Yeah. But he would, this person, hint, would get up, very early in the morning, a couple of hours early in the morning, and get in his writing time before the rest of the day came at him.
Right.
So even if it's a matter of getting up a little bit earlier, staying up a little later at night, coffee break, lunch break, travel time, if you're traveling on the subway or commuting in some way, shape, or form, and you give yourself a half hour to an hour, just a dedicated half hour to an hour, know that within that time, okay, I got to work on some dialogue. This dialogue's not working well. Let me play with that. And again, here's something I'll say just as an aside to that. Sometimes when you're doing things that have nothing to do with writing, the inspiration hits you. Yes. You're taking a shower and suddenly the dialogue starts coming to you in your head.
Right.
And you're going, oh, I got to carve it into the soap or something like that. So, be prepared to, have writing implements, or, I don't want you with soaking wet to touch anything electrical, but, have something nearby that if you do suddenly get an inspiration, that you can record it or jot it down so that you have it to relate to or rely on or go back to later. Yes, Chris.
I will confess.
Yes.
So one of the ways is, I always talked about index cards, but index cards don't.
And I have a student who is definitely all into that. All into that. Cool. Yes.
That's cool. But index cards don't work in the shower. So in our bathroom, there happens to be hand towels within reach, right?
Yeah.
So I have had my phone especially when it's warm enough to have the window open.
Yeah.
So it's in the, by the like the outside of the window, so it's not going to fall into. And I've dried my hand on a hand towel and turned on the microphone or the dictation and shouted the idea into the phone, right? Or dialogue, right? And you just you got to get it in quick enough before it turns off, and hope that it's somewhat coherent when it translates into the writing. But I have definitely had my wife say to me, who were you arguing with in there? And I would say, well, Mallory and Gunnar, because she's used to it. So, you would just.
Yeah, but your neighbors going by your house or going past that window.
I used to have a neighbor who never came out. Now I have new neighbors on the bathroom side of the house that are always, the one guy's out there doing the yard all the time. I have no idea what he must think is going on, you know, because he has said hello less and less to me as, you know, some of the ideas have come to me in the shower. So
Yeah.
it is what it is, you know.
Yeah.
But
again, refocusing, yes, keeping, being able to jot down at the drop of a hat ideas as
Yeah.
they come to you, and setting specific times that you will allow yourself to do nothing but write.
I want to address that last sentence. A lot of people will say, well, I just can't find the time to write. All
What
right,
about
I'm going to
finding?
propose this.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to propose this. Again, for the November, December wrap up, right? We're thinking
Mhm.
about preparing for 2022. All right, so take a week and don't write. Just bring, whether it's index cards or the little pad on your phone, or a Google Doc, whatever you work on that you can take everywhere. And every time you find yourself not doing anything, write it down. Like, maybe you take the train to work or the bus to work. Okay, I got on the bus at 7:15, and then make note of it when you get off the bus.
Mhm.
Maybe you go on the bus into the city or something like that. 40 minutes later.
Mhm.
Don't say anything, but on the way back, you got another 40 minutes. And so it goes, I used to teach high school, and I stopped going to the teacher's room for lunch, because then you start having fun. But if no one's in your classroom, you've got some wipes and stuff, you can get in a couple of notes, a couple of ideas, even if you jot them down in the time that it's taking you to eat a sandwich or whatever the hell you have for lunch. So you can max that time, maybe you don't fall asleep at the same time everybody else does. Turn the TV off. One show less is not going to kill you, right?
Well, I don't know. It depends on the show. No.
Yeah, I found how I could dictate in the phone as I'm walking. So I get about 2,000 words during my walk. That's only because I speak very clearly and try to avoid Bronx accents, or else you get really interesting translations.
Interpretations too, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I had some French word or something that mon cher and ma chère, right? And when I was dictating it, it came out no shit. So you can't be calling people no shit all through a short story. So some of that is fairly interesting, but you get the raw material down and your time is efficient, you feel better about it. So if it takes a week to note your patterns, you will find there's time. Then you say, okay, of that time, I'm going to dedicate this one and this one. That's where I'm going to do some writing. And then fine, don't worry about it if it's 10 or 15 minutes. If it's 10 or 15 minutes every day, that's how people write novels. That's how, at least it's 10 or 15 minutes rather than no minutes.
Yes. And again,
right? You gotta
it's
start.
a cumulative, and it's a process. I often say to my students, it's a process. And I don't like using the word process and creativity in the same sentence, but it is. We create in steps, in degrees, in and increments. And so 15 minutes of working on some dialogue, or straightening out a plot problem, or knocking out an outline fact, in terms of an overall story that you want to work on. That's legitimate. You do 15 minutes a day. Yeah. You 5 days go by. Do the math. So
Chuck Dixon used to say that.
Yeah.
It's like, if you're thinking about a story while you're mowing the lawn, that's writing.
Yep.
If you're like, how the hell am I going to get out of that situation? and you're still you're
Yep.
still writing. You just
Yep.
So
That's right. Absolutely. Just, make sure you make notes like Chris, in the shower. Have a hand towel right
ridiculous.
nearby, the window open, and don't worry about the neighbors. There you go. Those are the pieces there. Yeah.
That's another self-help book I'm gonna have to write.
Don't
Prepare
worry about the
yourself to
neighbors.
be ridiculous. Be
Yeah.
ridiculous. Or don't worry about the neighbors might be a great
Yeah, I like that.
Because I'm going for a walk and talking about all this crazy stuff in the story while I'm walking through the neighborhood. So,
Yeah. Well, it's particular, for those of us who were born into the era prior to earbuds and things like that, when you saw people talking to apparently themselves, you had different reactions. Nowadays,
Yeah,
it's got
it's
people
safe
have
now.
earbuds, and you can be talking about anything to anybody, even though it may appear that you're alone. So either way, again, rounding it off, take an accounting of what you've
He's an
managed
author.
to do this year. Okay, take an
Yes.
accounting of what you managed to do this year. Give yourself a break. Give yourself a pat on the back for moving forward. Start to strategize what you need to do going forward from here. And
Right.
also going back to something else that Chris was talking about, publishers not being, not looking, anxiously and aggressively right now for material. I'm gonna take a risk and say yes. In general, that's true, but it doesn't stop you from doing something that Chris has mentioned today and has also mentioned in previous episodes about looking for open calls.
Yeah.
Because
Because those guys want it.
Yeah, you can scan
Or
for
girls,
that. Yeah, scan for that. And even if you don't have anything now, or you don't have anything that you want to work on right now, being aware that this is something people are looking for,
Right.
might stimulate some ideas. And again, just make a note.
And again, all groups are being included in open calls now. There are more calls that I'm seeing that are taking the time out in the open call to say authors of color, LGBTQ, alternate lifestyles, other religions, are all heavily encouraged
to apply.
If the editors are making that effort, they're knocking on your door. If that fits you, it gives you an edge.
Yeah.
If they're asking for a specific group and you're in that group, it's not a trick. It's an opportunity.
And I'll go even one step further and be daring here because of something else we've talked about on several episodes. If you're not of that group, but you have some quality material that you'd like to submit that applies to that group, take a shot. Because you will learn from it one way or the other.
Well, I heard some interesting things recently. I was taking a class, getting an agent, getting published, that kind of class. And there was this is one of these classes where there's somewhere between 120 and 500 people on the Zoom, some crazy nonsense like that, right?
Yeah.
There's going to be no reunion on this class.
They'll all get their hands up.
Yeah. So one guy, and I only know because he identified himself as a guy, he put in for a question. It was like you put the chat question in caps there, and his was we were talking about opportunities people of color are being sought after right now, and make out of that whatever you want. It looks to me like opportunity, but this guy wrote, he says, I'm a cis white guy, but I've written a I think it was a black gay character. Should I take this as the opportunity you're talking about? Should I take it as the same opportunity? And the teacher was like, oh no, you can't submit that right now. I found that shocking, especially all the time we spent on this show talking about that. Sight unseen, don't listen to people like that. You know, if they're telling you the story that they haven't read from you shouldn't be handed in, hell with you.
Let me just
Right?
add to that. Let me just add to that by
There
saying
is
this.
there's a portion of the community that's knee jerk.
Yeah.
You don't want to work with those people.
But let me also say that another viewpoint of that, and I'm not pro that at all, and Chris knows
Me.
this. Another viewpoint of that is this. Back in the 50s in particular, but there were times in the 40s as well, 40s and 50s, let's just be inclusive. There were black artists and writers who had to submit their work and make sure that nobody knew that they were black.
Mm-hmm.
Now, once the work was in and published, there wasn't, oh, wait a minute, I'm reading this and I can tell it was written by a black person. There wasn't any of that.
Right.
It was only if they were seen, if someone visibly saw that that was handed in by a person of color, that it would automatically not be okay.
Right. Which is.
And so I don't want to go back to that.
Right.
Subsequently, I cannot promote the latter. I just can't.
Right. I agree. Now, had I answered that guy himself, I would have said, you know, if it's the best work you have, send it in. But just like I don't write blackjack with the same nuance of the black experience that you do. I mean, if you look at your blackjack stories and my blackjack stories, you know, my blackjack stories are kind of like Die Hard, right? It's action, 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 with a little bit of that well researched. You can write with more authority, and I think what's going to happen with that guy, and I wish him best of luck, but I think his next to an actual black gay person who has written from that experience, I know which one's going to get the leg up, because they're going to write with more authority. And but that doesn't mean you shouldn't be allowed to get up to the plate. It doesn't.
Exactly. I think that if the editor is reading the material from two authors, and one is and one isn't, and they're reading and the work speaks for itself, that's what they should go with. Now, if it's a case of, and I'm just going to qualify this by saying, I do know that some people will say there are not a lot of opportunities for people in this category to get published, so I'm going to lean a little bit more in their direction to give them these opportunities. That's another level of thinking, but it's not the same as saying, oh, your writing isn't as good. It's your writing is good, their writing is good, but you have more opportunities in other fields and they don't, so I'm going to give them this extra leg up. That might be
this particular person said, sight unseen, you can't submit that right now.
Yeah, well, and again, that person's prejudice is coming through there.
That's a bridge too far for me.
Yeah.
And it came across, this is the last point on this topic, and then we'll go wherever you want. It came across
Coney Island.
Well, there's again something that Mark Bernard, and I really like the way this guy thinks. He mentioned, you know, one of the big things going on in our era right now is cancel culture.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, I can't get behind cancel culture, but I can get behind consequence culture. Because, you know, you're free to do whatever you want to do, say what you want to do. Rather than cancel, there will be consequences. Maybe everyone will stop following you and block you, or, you know, maybe they won't go to your movie, you know, or whatever. That's the consequence of, I mean, if you don't like the show, don't buy a ticket. You know, I saw the Eternals this weekend, and no spoilers, nothing like that, but it is a very inclusive movie, and that added to my enjoyment. But there's a part of America that's not going to enjoy that movie because of that. Well, that's okay. There's a lot of movies out there.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you don't like the show, don't buy a ticket.
I just saw the French Dispatch this week. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it, even though I'm not French.
That's right. See, that's the expansiveness of Alex Simmons, ladies and gentlemen. But I do believe that, you know, like this guy, he wants to submit this book. Go ahead, and the consequence may be yeah, we can't, it's not right for us right now. Don't take it personally. That company doesn't want to publish that book right now.
Yeah.
It's nothing personal. That's, okay. And if you really believe in it, then you're going to keep sending it out somewhere until you find a home.
Absolutely.
But you should
Absolutely.
never, ever, ever be told, no, you can't do that right now.
Yeah.
That's when we're going backwards.
And we ain't doing that.
We need to move forwards.
We ain't doing that. And that is our message for this particular episode, as we've
move
talked about
forward to 2022.
Yes. And again, in order to move forward, take an accounting of what you've done so far, strategize what you need to do going forward, give yourself some scheduled time. And I know it says, I can't find the time. No, make the time.
We gave you a way to
the
find the time.
Right, exactly.
Right. We gave you a way to assess all of this professionally, not emotionally.
Yep.
Do that.
Yep. And then let us know what happens, please. We got email address, we've got comment sections. You can watch our magnificent countenance on YouTube, or you can listen to us on your various audio devices. And either way, reach out and let us know what's happening for you and what you'd like us to talk about. And we will continue to talk about it. Absolutely, because you can't stop us from talking, because that's what we do. That's who we be. Okay.
We could be, you can't cancel us, but you can give us a consequence.
That's right.
One way or the other. Now, ladies and gentlemen, this has been the Chris and Alex, the Just Us episode for November.
Yes.
But I gotta tell you, the special guest star episode is coming up.
Yes. Yep.
It's so good. It's going to feel like a holiday. Wait a minute. That may just be the time we go live with it.
Yeah.
But yeah. And if you're watching on YouTube,
just be prepared. Be prepared.
Might see hints. We don't know.
Yeah.
But we're really excited about that. And that's coming up this month. What a way to start the holidays, don't you think?
Yeah, I think.
All right, sir.
I think you're right.
There you go, sir.
Okay. All right. So, Chris, as always, a pleasure.
Pleasure.
Thank you, folks. Again, keep those cards and letters coming.
Yes.
And see you next time.
Peace.